Hello everyone. This is video 4 of the series on the AddressBook project. In the previous two videos we were able to create the model. We created the contact class and the contact list data controller class over there on the left in the navigation area. Today our goal is to move on to the view and the controller and to create the view and that includes the table view controller and display the list of contacts that the initial list of contacts from the contact list data controller. As a reminder, the contact is a class, or the data in the address book is represented by the concept of a contact. A contact has a first name, last name, and email, and I can initialize a contact by sending the message in it with first name, last name, email. The contacts are managed by a contact list data controller that holds an array of contact lists that has all the contacts in my address book and has messages count of contact lists to give me how many contacts there are, contact at index that receives an index and give me back the contact at that particular index, and add new contact, which is receives a new contact and add it to the list. We will be using those messages to make our table view controller receive the contact list. So to start with our view and the view controller, we use the template single view controller, which came to us with a single view and the class that represented that view. Look at the single view. When you select it and go to the type, it is of type view controller. However, the class that we want is a table view controller because we want to use the table view controller. In the object area to the right, there is a table view controller, and if you drag a table view controller and put it in here, you can see here is our table view controller. And let me take a minute. I'll reduce the navigation area and open the document navigator that give me access to whatever in the view. So this is the table view controller scene or view, which is the one highlighted in blue here. The table view controller, inside it there's a table view. You can see here table view prototype content. So if you click on it, this represents the table view, and this is in iOS 7. So if you're watching this with an iOS before than that, it's not gonna highlight the borders. And then if you open the table view and you click, there's a table view cell. So here is the cell, and inside the cell there is the content view, which is the white bar here. That's a view that contains whatever content you want to have in the cell. You can see here it is of type UI view. So to put content in a table view, the content is included in a cell, the cell is included in a table view, and the table view is included in a table view controller. Each one of them is responsible for different things. The view is responsible for whatever you want to have there. A text field, label, image, buttons, whatever you want to be in your cell. The table view cell is responsible for managing the cells, whether they are dynamically created. This is in case of something similar to the address book where you do not know how many cells will be there. It depends on the data, or statically created and what table cell models there are. The table view is responsible for containing the collection of cells, generating the cells if needed, and responding to some of the actions on the cell. And the table view controller is responsible for managing the view and controlling some of the user events and actions on each one of them. To learn about each and every one of those, you go to Help and you go to Documentation and API. And you can type table view controller. So in the table view controller, you can see a list of what the table view controller can do. You can see there's a table view data source, there's a table view delegate. There are different tasks, things that the table view can do. It can initialize the table view controller, getting the table view, configuring the table behavior, and refreshing the table view. It has some properties, and here is a description of all these. If you want to look at what's the the table view itself, not the controller. So here is the review of the table view. And so we're looking at the different elements in the table UI table view. Here it is. So this is the information on the UI table view and the different tasks that you can get with the UI table view. This may look very overwhelming, so take it step by step. There's so much that is being put in the table view. The number of sections in the table view, the number of rows in section. If you recall, these are very similar to the picker view that we used in the previous, in project number 2. And there is cell for row at index path, which is similar to title for row, where you can specify what you want the cell to be. And then there are so many different tasks that you can have in the table view controller here. Okay. When you include a table view inside a table view controller, the delegates and the data sources and things of that sort are already set for you, because they are already set in the table view controller. So the table view controller you get here is a combined table view controller with its enclosing table view, with the delegates and data source set, and with the enclosing table view cell. Okay, so it's very important to know that there are 3 different libraries here, actually 4, that you are dealing with whenever you deal with a table view. The table view controller, the table view cell, and the content that you want inside that cell. Alright. So let me close that, bring back our navigation. So we want our app to open with a table view controller. So we really don't need a table view. So let me take the arrow that represents the start of an app and make it point to my table view controller. And at this point, I no longer need that table view, so I will delete it. This table view I just deleted was connected to these 2 classes, the viewController.h and m. So I no longer these 2, delete, move to trash. So I end up with a table view that's the start of my app, and it doesn't have a class yet. If you recall from video number 1, my app will have more than one view. It will have the table view controller, but it will have other views as well. So you may decide to, since I'm setting this up, let me set up with the navigation controller, because you know you're going to use the navigation controller. Or you can decide, well, let me leave the navigation controller to later, and I'll do it whenever I need it. You can go either way. I just wanted to point that out to you. If you recall from previous project, when you bring in the navigation controller, it comes with its own table view as well. So the navigation controller, when you bring it, it comes with the connections already made to a table view controller. So since I'm going to need a table view controller, you can decide to say, I'm going to do as I used before, and I will delete this table view controller. Remember previous projects, whenever we bring a navigation controller, we delete the attached table view controller and make the connections to whatever we want to do. Or you can say, well, maybe since I'm going to use a table view controller anyway and the navigation controller already comes with one, let me just use the one that comes with the navigation controller. So I'll move the arrow from here and put it to the navigation controller, and here's my navigation controller coming with a table view controller. So that extra one I added, I don't actually need it. I will use it later because we will use table view controllers in the details and in the add new, but for the moment I don't really need it. So here's what I have: a navigation controller, with it comes a table view controller, and they are already connected to one another. Let's run this app. I just upgraded the operating system, so when you run the app, you should be able to see it should work. It should give you a table view controller that is empty, nothing in it. So here it is, and you can see the different cells. It populates and fills the screen, but it is empty. There is nothing in it, and here is the title. So the first task that we want to accomplish is to populate that table view controller with the list of names. In the contact list data controller, when we initialized it with one contact, which is your name and email address. So we want to populate this with that. Let's first, since I deleted the the table view is not connected now currently to a controller class. It is connected to the default library controller, which means it doesn't do anything specifically that you want. It does what is programmed in the library. So let's first add and connect a class to the table view controller so I can specify what data I want to display. So we have done that several times before. Go to File and say New, or go to the project and right click and say New File, and Objective-C class. Next, and then the subclass is a UI table view controller. We've used UI view controller, NS object. Now we're using UI view controller, and then we call this class the contacts list view controller. Create. So here is my contact list view controller. Now I need to attach this root view controller to my contact list view controller, and here it is. So now my class here is connected to the contact list view controller. I'll change the title in the menu bar, and I'm going to call it contacts or address book. And if you go to the contact list view controller.m, you will see there are methods coming from the table view data source, because this controller is the data source for the table view that it encloses. It's already come set up for you, and there are methods that are available to you from the delegate that are commented out. There are three methods that are very critical: the number of sections in table view, the number of rows in section, and the cell for row at index path. So let's work with all three of them. Our table view, you need to think, where is the data going to come from? So I have a data controller So my data controller will be the one that the table view will use. So I need to tell the table view controller to use a data controller. So I come here to the import. So I am now in the contact list view controller.h. Go to the import and say contact list data controller.h. So I'm importing that class so I can use it. And I know that I'm going to use the contact as well. So import contact.h. Or if you recall, contact list data controller.h already contains import contact.h. So importing this one should be fine. Let me take this out to make some room here. Then I need to create an instance or object of the contact list data controller to provide the table with the data source. So this will be an instance variable, so I use curly braces and I say contact list data controller star, and then I can give this any name. I will call it data controller. So the purpose of this instance is to represent the data controller. Then that's all what I need to do in the contact list view.h. Let's go to the contact list view.m, and in the view.load there are some comments here. I don't want any of these. You can uncomment them or you can leave them. So I'm going to take them out for now, and then I'll say allocate and initialize the contact list data controller. So I'll say data controller equal, and then contact list data controller allocate, and then initialize. Once I initialize the contact list data controller, if you switch to the .m and look for the initialize method, what it does, it allocates the array and it creates a default contact and adds that default contact to my list. And if initialize work well, it gives me back an object that has one contact. If it doesn't work well, it gives me back nil. So we'll assume here that it does work well. Then we come here and say, right, number of sections in table view. We have only one section. You can delete this warning. How many rows in the section? The number of rows in section is the same as the number of items in the table, or contacts in the table, in the data controller. So the data controller had a message or a method that gave me back the contact, so I can call that message. So I can call the data controller and say, give me the count of contact list, because the number of contacts in the contact list will be the number of rows in the section. So what this will do, it will tell the data controller or the table view controller that we have one cell, that we have as many cells as we have in the data controller, and that there's only one section. Now, if you recall, we said there is a table view controller, there's a table view, and then there's a cell, and inside the cell comes the content view. So we need to decide what we want this content view to be like. Luckily, there are some templates of contact views. If you go to the attribute, there is a cell there's a basic cell that has just a title. So this basic cell has already a view, and as you can see here, the view of the basic cell has one label. there is a right detail cell which has two labels, one called title, one for the detail. There's a left detail cell which has again two labels but organized differently, and there is a subtitle cell which still have two labels that are just organized differently. So what we have here is that Xcode gives you some templates of some cells to use if you don't want to create your own cell. And that's what we're going to do here. When you create a cell, you can identify that cell and give it a name. So, and you also need to decide what you want these two to be. I'm going to use the last name for the title and the first name for the detail. So, so we'll say you use identifier, and we'll call this contact cell. This is important because this is the identifier for that cell, and this is how we are going to control that cell from the view controller. You can add an accessory, something that indicates there are details. So you click on it, you go for details. You can say that there's a detailed disclosure. So you click on it to open another detail. We're going to do that since we are going to open to another one. And then you can have an editing disclosure. You can have indents or width and different other properties that you can specify here for the cell. There are two types of cell: dynamic prototypes, which what we have here, it's a dynamic cell, meaning that it changes dynamically with the app depending on the data, the number of cells, or static cells, which means that you already know the number of cells, you not want to change it, and we're going to use the static in the next videos for the different views. So let's set the title and the detail to whatever last name we have in the detail controller. So in the contact list view, notice in the data controller I have a method called contact@index that gives me back a contact, and in the contact I have a property for first name and last name. So in the view controller, here is the cell. So it starts by creating a reference to a cell identifier. So we called our cell contact cell. This has to be exactly the same name as the name we specified for the cell over here. Contact cell, whatever we specified in the identifier, this has to be this exact same name we specify in the cell for row at index path. This method is called whenever the table view wants to display a cell. It passes to that method the index as an index path, which is a combination of the section and the row. So we only want the row, and then it creates a cell based on this cell with the index path and give you a cell. So now you configure that cell. Configuring the cell meaning that I need to specify the labels, the title label and the detail label. So here is in configuring the cell, my first step is to get the contact object at that particular index. So I'll define here contact and give it a name, cell contact, and then I will call the data controller. Anytime I need something related to the data, I get it from the data controller, and I created a method that says contact@index that gives me back a contact object. And then the index, what is the index? I'll get the index from the index path, but the index path has the section and the row, so I need to say .row to get the row of the number of row. Then I use this contact, cell contact, to get the first name and the last name. So to get the cell label, the text label in the cell, So this is a label object, and then I will say cell title, and I say here for the cell, and I will say give me your text label. So the text label is the label for the main text components in the cell. Then I'll use the cell, or assign the last name from the contact to the cell title. And I probably don't need that or that. So I will send the message to the cell title, and I will say set text. Where would the text come? I will send the message to the cell contact, and I will say last name. But I did not create a message called last name, but remember, since I made last name a property, it automatically creates a message for me, or a method for me, so I can call a message like this. Then I'll do the same for the detail. Get the detail text label in the cell. So that's a UI label, cell detail, and I will say cell, and I will say detail text label. Then assign the first name from the cell contact. The cell detail. So I'll send the message to the cell detail and say set text, and the text is coming from the cell contact, and says first name, and then return the cell. So send the cell back to the table view. So if everything works well, this should let me see my contact first name and last name in the table view. And if you wonder where this came from, this came from the implementation here. Here is the contact, which means if you add another contact, if you repeat lines 20, 21, 22, 23, repeat those lines, don't have to repeat the comment, repeat those lines, you can add another contact, a third contact, and a fourth contact. And in later video, we will add an add button here that allows us to add a contact. At this point, when you click on the cell, nothing happens. And in the next video, when you click on the cell, we'll set it up to display the details of this particular contact, which includes the first name, last name, and email, and any other details that you will add to your contact later on. So that concludes this video. Thank you.